I hope it's sinking in for everybody. I know the last time we spoke to everyone, it was kind of really fresh, and maybe it hadn't yet, but the Eagles won the Super Bowl, Rube.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that it really takes a while for it to really, he says, sink in. I think it varies by the person, but like people are going to wake up in like March and be like, oh my God, that really happened. And yeah, it's and just the way it happened. I mean, you look up and it's 34-0. It was just like, is this really happening? I mean, is this we really seeing this? I asked one of the guys in the studio, Jeff. Um, am I dreaming right now? Is this really 34-0 in a Super Bowl? It really did happen. Apparently, I looked it up before the pod started, and it really did happen.
Yeah, it did. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast, by the way. We're presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. The Eagles are Super Bowl champions. They're now back in Philadelphia. We're both back in or around the city. It took me a while to get back. That New Orleans airport was not quite ready for the mass exodus, but I made it. And yeah, now we go about our lives. But it's kind of crazy that, you're trying to find a way to put a bow on a season like that, and it's almost impossible.
Yeah, you're right. And it's going to take a while to really put into context that this is one of the greatest teams ever assembled. I mean, it is to beat the two-time champs and the consensus best quarterback in the league, best coach, one of the best coaches in history, and to take it to them like the Eagles did, to win 18 games in a season, and just tear through the postseason. This is a really special season, a special team. It's funny. I got a text from a friend of mine who's a really avid Eagles fan, and she said, I'm kind of depressed that I'll never get to watch this team again. It's kind of like, it's sad in a way that I won't, on Sunday afternoon, I'm not going to be able to watch the 2024 Eagles because they gave me just such enjoyment and such joy to watch this team play football. And it's just sad that there's not another game. There's not another round. There's not another opportunity to see him play, which is, it's a really interesting point of view. But I can see that. And, this team, as it was assembled Sunday, won't exist anymore. They won't play together anymore. And there's something kind of wistful about that. But, the memories of what this team accomplished are going to be with everybody for as long as they live.
Yeah, and it's funny because as we're about to start this pod, I always wear a hat. I don't know if you can see it. That's the Brazil hat I bought. I mean, we were in Brazil this year. Like that's the kind of crazy season this has been. That feels like it was so long ago. And really, like that was the same team, but that wasn't the same team, if that makes sense. This team kind of went through a transformation period throughout this season, which isn't completely off for like that happens to a lot of teams, but the team these Eagles transformed into was one of the best football teams any of us have ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen. You're right. I mean, a lot of teams go through that. I don't know if I've ever seen such a cut and dry. I mean, it was the bye week. I mean, there's a very clear before and after, and they're just completely different teams before and after the bye. And you did a story not too long ago about just all the things that turned around during that period. Whatever they did, they got to bottle it because it was the most successful week off any team's ever had. They transformed. And I mean, obviously the big thgoing there were a couple of big things, Cooper DeJean taking over in the slot and just a commitment to the running game. And that's who we're going to be. We're going to be a team that runs 45, 50 times a game. Those are the main things, but there's certainly other things. And
I'd also argue the time that Nick and Jalen spent either together or talking that week, because let's face it, that was one of the biggest topics of the offseason. And for those two guys to figure it out and then be standing together on the stage with the Lombardi Trophy at the end of this thing is pretty wild.
It is. It was a really striking image to see the two of them. And, they've been through some ups and downs. They really have. But, when you figure it out and you figure out how to not just coexist, but how to make each other better and how to bring out the best in each other, that's what happens. That's what's possible. You get to the top of the mountain, and they did it together. I'm not sure either one of them could have done it by themselves or without the other one, but they figured it out.
Yeah, someone once told me you can't be great without the greatness of others. I don't know who said it.
Never heard that one.
Yeah, obviously that's been the Nick Sirianni quote all year. But Parade Friday, if you haven't heard, I'm sure you've heard. That should be a lot of fun. Valentine's Day, which if you have, apparently the mayor's already saying if you have reservations in Center City, you'll be okay. Everything will be cleared out by then. And I'm going, I don't know if that's the case, but we'll see. It should be a fun Friday. That last parade, I was so sick, I didn't even leave my house that day. I remember getting I tried to track down the suit, like the Kelsey Mummer suit. I was able to figure out where that came from in between a fever and nausea and everything I had going on that week.
Yeah, well, I heard they're gonna. If you get sick again, they're just gonna have the parade in Marlton, so they're gonna just bring it to you.
I'd appreciate that.
Oh, suburban.
Yeah,
Jersey.
I don't live there, but I still appreciate it.
Oh no, yeah, you don't. Well, South Jersey.
Yeah.
How about if they should have little regional parades, like a South Jersey parade, a Bucks County parade, a little Delco parade.
No, I like having one. You get everyone in the city for it.
Wilkes-Barre parade, Jamestown, New York parade.
Now they could do that. They could do they could do a parade in each player's hometown for them, but you need to have the one big parade.
I remember 2 years ago they had a parade in Vineland for Pacheco. I just wonder how many people turned out. I mean, look, he's a great kid and everything, but yeah, I'm not sure that was the most popular idea 2 years ago. But it's Friday's going to be wild. One last chance to celebrate this team, and it's going to be interesting seeing some of the annex, what some of these guys are going to come up with.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pressure because the last time was so legendary. I mean, you ended up with so many crazy moments from that one. Whether obviously Kelsey topped them all, but there were a lot of things. You had the crazy Chris Long outfit. You had I remember Bo had the American flag on. You had the Doug Peterson snatching a beer out of midair on the bus.
That was
there's
slick.
so many fun memories from that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a whole new set of them coming up on Friday.
Who's the most likely to be the star of Friday?
Interesting. I could see Landon just having his own keg on the float, maybe. I'm sure CJ's going to have something up his sleeve. Very differently. I'm sure Saquon. Saquon will probably just jump off the float and high five all the kids. I mean, yeah. I don't know any. There's no Kelsey on this team, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be some guys who make the most of the opportunity.
You know who I keep thinking about? Nick Sirianni. I mean, It wasn't Doug's style to go crazy and give some crazy kind of speech, but Nick, on the other hand,
yeah. I mean, I could see Nick having a couple cold beverages and kind of letting loose.
I mean, Nick has been talked about nationally for years from the moment he got hired, basically, and yeah, I think that's going to come up.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and it should.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned that this team will never be together again. Already evidence of that. Kellen Moore gets hired officially by the Saints. Look, we all knew this was coming, but it does mean the Eagles will have to hire their fourth offensive coordinator in 5 years under Nick Sirianni.
And their sixth play caller with Jalen Hurts. So it's an important, and I think we're kind of in lockstep on. I thought he was very good in the postseason, especially the last couple of weeks. I thought he had some very good moments. I think overall he was good, not great. I did think the offense at times underachieved. It's kind of hard to, look. You look back, and I mean, they're Super Bowl champs and they won 18 games, so it's hard to be too picky. But it's a big hire, especially because of that kind of. This guy's got to click with Jalen. I mean, that's the number one priority here. It's got to be somebody that is going to click with Jalen. It's going to have Jalen's seal approval, and that's a tricky thing. And we've certainly seen what happens when it doesn't click with Jalen. So there's two schools of thought. You go out and get the best outside guy and you bring him in, or you stay inside and have that continuity. And we'll see very soon what Nick's thinking.
Yeah, and they've done it both ways in the past. Obviously, Shane Steichen gets hired away after the 22 Super Bowl. They promote Brian Johnson. He lasts for 1 year. They fire him, perhaps as a scapegoat, but they fire him, and then they go out and sign Kellen Moore. And I think that the Kellen Moore loss feels more significant now than it did a month ago.
Yeah, I think that's true because of what they did over the last month. Yeah, there's no question. I do think he was at his best, and really the whole team was at their best, but he was very good in the postseason. And
yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the offense started to click, and Jalen had his best games in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think the sign of a good play caller is, look, the running game's not working, so let's balance out. We got to make some plays in the passing game, but I want to stick with the running game too because that's our bread and butter. And more often than not, Saquon's going to break one at some point. He didn't in this case, but I like that Kellen kept dialing up the runs, that ran the clock and set up some big passes. I thought he handled that challenge of the running game's not working. The Chiefs took away what the Eagles do best, and Kellen had the answer to that.
Yeah, I agree with that because if I told you that, Saquon would have, what do you have, 25 for whatever, you would have 57, I think. Yeah. You'd say, yeah, that's not good for the Eagles, but it was fine. Their passing game was there when it needed to be, and they did what they needed to do to win. How do you think the process will work as they look for the next OC?
Well, I'm sure the process already started, and I would think the first thing that Nick has to do is talk to Jalen. Like, what are you looking for? Is there anybody you have in mind? Is there anyone who's been here that you're comfortable with? I think it's got to start there. I mean, it's actually more important that this guy clicks with Jalen than with Nick. I mean, Nick, it's going to have pieces of Nick's offense, but it's going to be Jalen and the new coordinator. They're the two that have to make it work. So I think that's where the conversation has to start.
I actually don't know if I believe that it's more about Jalen, the coordinator, as opposed to Nick and the coordinator.
I think it's both, but I do think it starts with Jalen.
Yeah, so I think I actually disagree with that because, this is such a unique setup here because you have a CEO head coach, and that offensive coordinator has a ton of power. So that's why this year was the beginning of the year was trying to figure out what's new, what was Sirianni offense, and how do those things blend together. And to be honest, for a lot of the season, I don't think it blended as well as we thought it was going to. I think there's you have to figure out what level coordinator do you want? Do you want a guy who's going to say, no, this is my system, it works, I want to run it? Do you have someone who's willing to incorporate? Do you have someone who Sirianni will feel the power over to say, no, this isn't working, let's do what I want to do? I think that dynamic is an interesting one. Whereas because it's Sirianni's background being an offensive coach, whereas defense, that he's going to turn it over to Vic or whoever else. Obviously, Vic gets all the control, but pretty much any DC is going to have the control here. But offense is Nick's area. But then again, it wasn't his area as much this year. So I think the dynamic worked for one season, but I think you have to have the right guy in place for it to work going forward.
Yeah, well, that's definitely true. And I think if Nick is smart, and Nick is smart, he'll try to replicate the same dynamic this coming year. It worked. And I know it's not the easiest thing for him to step away from the offense. And he didn't completely. He still certainly was a part of what they did and what they came up with. But I think the strongest offense is when that OC it's his scheme, it's his offense, and he's running it. And Nick let Kellen do that. And I think I think he needs to do that with the next guy.
Should we start with? Well, actually, first, I had a bunch of people asking me in the airport while I was hanging out there for a few hours.
How long are you waiting, Dave?
Well, it was kind of crazy. So it was like a mass exodus from New Orleans. So it took me about an hour in my Uber just to get to the airport, and then there's like one, it's one road through and it's crazy. It's a lot of people in a small little airport. So it took me a while to get there, and then I was about a 4-hour delay. But it was funny. They kept pushing it back little by little by little by little. So, I never even and every restaurant was packed. So you would have had to wait. And I didn't feel comfortable waiting because then I thought we could leave. So I never sat, whatever. I had a bunch of Eagles fans. And I felt like a lot of them are asking me, do you think Kellen might actually stay now? And I was like, no, he's going. And they were like, I don't understand why. That Saints team stinks. They don't have a quarterback. They're in cap hell. I was like, yeah, I get it, but yeah, I think he has to take the job.
I mean, there's not a lot of head coaches who go into good situations, who go into 11-5 teams.
This one's particularly bad, though.
It is, but every coach thinks that they're the one that can turn it around. And the worse the situation is, I mean, look at the job Doug did. When he came in at 16, that team was in shambles. Look at the job Nick did when he came in. That team was in shambles the previous year. Andy, the team he took over from 98 was 3-13. So I think coaches, I don't think they look at it that way. This is a really bad situation. I don't want to go there. I think they look at it, and this is conversations I've had with coaches. They look at it this is a really bad situation. I'm the one that can fix it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think those Eagles teams were, at least the recent ones, were in as bad a shape as his Saints team.
2020, I mean,
there was talent on that team, and that's why it was a disaster, because they had enough talent to not be a 4-win team.
Yeah, I guess but yeah, I mean, I just think that's how coaches think. I think any coach wants to be a head coach. It's what you aspire to, and if you have the support of the owner and you're going to be there for a couple of years, you're going to have a chance to turn it around. So, yeah, I just don't think coaches look at it like that's a really bad situation. I mean, if you have multiple offers, you're going to take the best one. This is the best situation where I can succeed the quickest. But I think in Kellen's case, I totally don't blame him for taking that offer.
Yeah, and Kellen was someone whose star was kind of rising faster a few years ago. People thought he'd be a head coach by now, so he probably doesn't have the benefit to be picky with this. He did interview for 3 jobs this year, but there's no guarantee those jobs will be there next year. Look at Bobby Slowick, right? He was someone who everyone thought would be a head coach, then he gets fired a year later. So I understand why he took it. And apparently some of the reporting about this job said that Kellen did want to get some assurances that this was going to, they were in for the lengthy rebuild that it would take there.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
The candidates, and we've done this before, but it's time to do it again because now they actually have to go through with this search. The top one is clearly Kevin Patullo from an internal standpoint. He's been the passing game coordinator, now the associate head coach too. They added that title in 23. If they hire from inside, it's going to be Kevin Patullo, and that's not to say they don't have other good candidates, but I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, he's been with Nick since 2018, and he looks like Nick. They're very close, and I think I know I got a bunch of messages and comments from people who are concerned about him because he's passing game coordinator. There's a thought that he won't maintain the run first, philosophy. I mean, that's his title. It doesn't mean he doesn't believe in the running game. I mean, I don't think that necessarily. I think there's always reason to be concerned when you're making a change like this, but I think he's gonna do what what it takes to win. If that means running 50 times, they'll do it. If that's the kind of team it is next year, and who knows, but I wouldn't be concerned with that piece of it. There's a concern that he's another Sirianni because they're so linked together, and that his play calling would be similar to Nick's, which wasn't very good. So I get it. There's concerns, and I don't know. Like I don't know what kind of play caller he'd be. So until we see it, some people have a knack for it and some people don't. But really, it comes down to if you want Jalen to have a guy who he's familiar with, who he's been with, who he speaks his language, then he's certainly a strong candidate from that aspect. If that's what's the most important thing to Nick, then he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, and I'm sure Nick will push for Kevin Patullo. I don't think Nick's making this decision on his own.
Sure.
We know.
Although, I think what happened Sunday doesn't hurt his power base in the building.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also still don't think it's his decision and his decision alone.
Right, true.
We know Howie and Jeffrey will have some sort of role in that. And you're right, like him winning the Super Bowl, I think that really does make it a lot more feasible that Kevin Patullo just becomes the guy. Not only that Nick has more power, but this is a team coming off a dominant championship performance. Maybe it's not a terrible idea to keep things the way they are in a certain way. I think the fear with Patullo might not be his play calling. I think the only fear there is that he's never done it, so you just don't know. I think the real fear is that in terms of like the structure of the offense, that it regresses, not even that far, but it regresses to what it was in 23 when it was still Nick calling the shots offensively. And I think that's a legitimate fear. I know that Patullo might not think that's fair because he's his own guy and he has his own thoughts, but I don't know. He's worked with Nick Sirianni for a long time. And it's not like that offense was bad. We've seen some really good things offensively from Nick Sirianni. I don't want to lose sight of that, but there was a reason they made the change, and there was a reason they said they needed fresh ideas, and there was a reason that Nick kind of turned over a lot of the offense to Kellen Moore this season.
Yeah. These are all good questions, and they'll be answered soon. And there's good outside candidates. We'll go through some of them, but I think there's a very good chance it'll be Kevin Patullo.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. Especially too, like this, we're late in the process, and this is what happens when you win the Super Bowl or you go to the Super Bowl. It's late. It's February 11th as we're recording this, so like all the head coaching positions are filled up. Most of their coordinators are filled up, so there's just not. You're at a little bit of a disadvantage because so many good people are off the board.
Yep.
Then I think you get to the external candidates. It's like, what kind of candidate do you want here? Do you want a guy with fresh ideas who might be climbing the ladder as a coach, or do you want the Vic Fangio model, which, to be fair, like that doesn't work out the way it does everywhere. Like Vic is kind of a special example where it really worked out the best it possibly could have ever worked out in the forever. So don't think that like that model is always going to work. But
and it probably fails more than it works.
Yeah, I agree. There's a reason that those coaches haven't worked elsewhere, right? So, but I think there is some validity to the idea of getting a guy who's not going to jump next season for a head coaching job.
Yeah, the Nick Sirianni coaching tree. He's got 3 of them now after 4 years, and and then 2 got fired. He's had what, 9 coordinators? It'll be 9 in 5 years if you include Coach Matty, and we kind of have to.
Now you should probably include him twice because he has offense and defense in his background.
Okay, at least twice. Yeah, maybe more. But this is. Nick's got to be sitting there saying, I don't want to have to replace all my coaches every year, and Vic's not going anywhere, and that's got to be a really good feeling. He's going to retire from this job. He's not going to, he's not interested in anything else. He loves it here. He loves being back in the Northeast, in Pennsylvania. But on offense, I could see him wanting to hire somebody. And there's candidates out there who aren't certainly, been around as long as Vic, but are older guys who probably aren't going to be head coaches again or head coaches, period. Who are good candidates. Guys like Frank Reich and Doug Peterson, I think come to mind. probably won't be head coaches again, maybe, but probably not. But I think both are very good play callers. And Doug has a relationship with Jalen. It's a short one, and it was early on in his career. It's just a name that came to mind, but and certainly Frank. I think Frank's time as a head coach has come and gone. He's not going to be a hot candidate again. But those are a couple kind of guys who are, come to mind in that category.
When you're talking about Vic, it just reminded me on Sunday night, I think everyone else was still on the field celebrating, and I just saw Vic walk back to the locker room. I think he had just had enough of it. I was laughing because I was like, I don't think anyone else was even off the field yet. And Vic was like, yeah, it's enough.
He's probably going to go watch film.
And then he also left everyone's partying in the locker room. And he's like, well, that's probably not for me either. He was seeing Takeoff. He was not dancing. No, I wish he was. That would have been funny.
Yeah. It's just, you're so happy for Vic this stage of his career. What a job he did. I know we're way off topic here, but I mean, this defense just kept getting better and better and better. And they're just scratching the surface. I mean, they're not going anywhere. That's a topic for another day. I don't mean to get off topic.
I think that one was my fault. I brought up Vic leaving the field, so I'll take the hit on that one.
I'll let you take that.
Another name on my radar. He's been on my radar for a long time. If you want that type of coordinator, offensive coordinator, Jim Caldwell, former head coach, former offensive coordinator, not going to be a head coach again. So I think there are some names that make sense from that perspective. Now, the trade-off there is that sometimes when you have a coach who's a little long in the tooth, they don't put in the work to stay recent and current. I'm not saying about any of those three guys, I don't know, but I think you run that risk a little bit. Yeah.
And that's what's so impressive about Vic. I mean, as his career has evolved, his defense has evolved, and he works as hard as anybody, and he never let it get stale, and he's got a fresh approach to things. He's never a guy that was like, well, we did it this way 20 years ago, so we're going to do it this way now. He's not like that. So that is a concern with a guy that's been around the league a long time, and I think it's something you have to be careful about.
Yeah, and like we said, Vic is kind of a special case.
Yeah,
he's the best all-time year for a guy who's been a hire like that. So maybe it does skew their thinking. I doubt it will. I think they're going to make this choice independently of how things worked with Vic. But I have some other names. Marcus Brady, someone who has familiarity with Nick, who was here briefly in 23, also 22, joined midway through that season after he got fired in Indy. So presumably has some sort of relationship with Jalen as well. Now, we should point out that every relationship is not created equally. Like, just because a guy worked with someone, it doesn't mean that they're best friends and it would work together.
Yeah.
Ken Dorsey actually just got hired by the Cowboys as passing game specialist, so maybe he wouldn't be willing to burn that bridge and leave. But this Eagles job is more attractive. You're an offensive coordinator with play calling duties, and Dorsey's a guy who kind of reminds me of Kellen Moore a little bit. Like at one point, everyone thought he's going to be a head coach, and it just kind of didn't work for him. He's in a bad spot, gets fired, and then he's all of a sudden available. So I think that one, like, I like the similarities there between him and Kellen Moore. There are some younger guys like a Gerard Johnson, who they actually interviewed last year.
Right.
He was one of three candidates they interviewed for the Kellen Moore job. It was Kellen Moore and Cliff Kingsbury. Kingsbury goes to the Commanders, and then Gerard Johnson, who stays in Houston. They don't have a great year. They get back to the playoffs. CJ Stroud I don't know if regress is the right word. Didn't have a very good season. Bobby Slowick gets fired, and Gerard Johnson is still there as the quarterback's coach. It looks like he's going to stay under Nick Kelly. But maybe interview him again, or maybe you draw on what you learned from last year, and he's at least a candidate again.
Yeah, it seems like they liked him from all we've garnered. And then there's Bobby Slowick himself.
Yeah, he's available. Someone who, if I told you a year ago he's available, everyone would go, whoa, get him, go get him. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Not his best season in Houston. Apparently, it seems like maybe he didn't have the best relationship with Stroud. I don't know anything about that, but yeah, certainly if you're making a list of the candidates, he should be on it.
Yeah, it really is something how candidates go from just hot to, not even in the picture so quickly. I mean, look at Eric Bieniemy. A few years ago, it was just a matter of like, which job did he want? Not, would he be a coach? And now I don't even know where he is now.
Is Bears running backs coach, I believe.
Is he? Interesting. So
he just got hired this year.
Yeah. He was the hottest coordinator going, and now he's a running backs coach on a bad team. I think he had a college job last year, right? Was he at UCLA or something? But they come and go. And, one thing about Jeff Lurie, and, he likes to – nobody had heard of Doug Peterson when he hired him. Nobody heard of Nick Sirianni when he hired him. Now, this isn't a head coaching job, but Jeff Lurie loves to invent guys that haven't been on the radar, haven't been hot candidates. Just, we identified this talent and he's the guy we're going with. So there's always that chance that the guy they settle on is going to be some guy that maybe we've heard the name, we've heard of him, but certainly isn't in that category of hot candidates. They love doing that.
I thought Nick Caley was a really interesting name, and I think he would have been firmly in the mix, at least a candidate, had he not gotten hired before the Eagles could start their search.
Yeah, very well possible.
Some other names, Josh McCown, who we have some familiarity with. He was here for a little bit. Thad Lewis, another guy who was here. That was a lifetime ago. Doesn't have really any connections in the building other than like Howie, but he's kind of been a fast riser too.
Yeah, I guess he was practice squad quarterback one year. I don't even know when it was. Was that during Chip?
He was here in 2015. Yeah.
Yeah. He's an impressive guy. We used to talk football. He was really he was kind of like a coach when he was a player here. So you could tell where he was headed. It's a good name.
He was the guy that taught me the value of getting to know the third string quarterback. That's a good tip for any young journalists who ever end up covering an NFL team. Get to know the backup quarterbacks because they don't have the media crush on them all the time, but they know the offense inside and out. They can explain things to you if they're friendly enough. You can learn a lot from the backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that was true this year. Kenny Pickett and Tanner were always just sitting there waiting to talk to anybody who came around. It's good advice.
Which way do you think the Eagles are leaning?
My guess is Patullo. Certainly some intriguing candidates out there. I think the fact that they won and Nick may have a little more voice in the decision could swing him over to the favorite. What do you think of Josh McCown? Very sharp guy. He's another backup quarterback we used to talk to all the time, and really smart guy. I think he finished that game, right? That one playoff game.
Yeah, with his
torn hamstring,
nothing connected to the bone. Yeah, hamstring tore off the bone.
Yeah. He set an NFL record in that game. He was sacked 9 times for 11 yards, the fewest yards per sack in history.
And you watched what he did in Minnesota this year. It's hard to argue. Yeah, Sam Darnold playing until the playoffs at an extremely high level.
He really did. I think they really like him. I think the front office really likes him. It's an interesting name.
Okay. I'm curious to see. This is a little off topic, but it does coincide here. I'm curious to see what happens with Nick in terms of the power dynamic in the organization, because it was something that I think they dealt with the last time and we've talked about the Eagles are not like a head coach driven team, right? Like they want their coach to have a place, but it's like they have a GM driven team, which is fine. Like Howie's great at his job, but I think maybe it like eventually, I don't say issues, but it changed the dynamic when Doug won a Super Bowl, because I think in his mind, he thought I should have more say in these things now. I'm a Super Bowl winning head coach. And I think they still kind of looked at him as the guy they hired when no one else wanted him. And there are obviously some similarities here, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just curious to see how it all plays out over the next few years. Now, if they keep winning like this, everything can change. It doesn't matter, but that's something fascinating to me to watch over the next few seasons.
I do think Nick and Doug are different in that I think Nick is content in his role. I'm not sure Doug ever – I think Doug really wanted more power. I'm not sure Nick does. I think, I could be wrong, but I just think he likes the way things are. I don't think
Doug was like power. I don't think Doug wanted to be GM. Like, I just think he wanted people to listen to him more, especially with like his coaches, obviously.
Yeah.
Whereas Nick actually enjoys the process of hiring new coaches way more than Doug ever did.
No, Doug didn't like it. That's why he kept 9 of Chip's coaches.
Mm-hmm.
9 of them. That never happens. Includes a couple Paganettis. One of who's still here, miraculously, has a ring.
Has 2 rings.
Was he back at Oregon in 17? He went back to Oregon for a couple of years.
Oh, was he in Oregon? I don't know.
I'll look it up. You can talk for a while.
Okay. Well, why don't we take a break and you can look that up and you can tell the people on the other side
who really care
what you figured out.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
TJ Paganetти actually left after the 2014 season, went back to Oregon for 2 years. He had played for Chip there. And then he came back here. Doug hired him in 17. So Doug even hired Chip coaches who weren't here when he got here. And then TJ Paganetti got his first ring in 17 and his second on Sunday. So that is a wild story.
That's fun. Put some respect on his name. 2-time Super Bowl champion.
He's piling up. He's Hall of Fame contender.
All right, let's get to your emails. You can send them to us at Eagle-Eyed NBC Uni. That's NBCUNI.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you have that QR code. You can scan that and send us one that way. Rube, a lot of emails. There were a lot of emails in the inbox, so we'll get through a bunch of them today. And if you don't get yours read, just know that we're trying. I'm trying to get them all in as much as I can. The first one is from Jeremy. Hey, guys, just wanted to say I've doubted Nick Sirianni at times, even saying he should be fired at the end of last season. This is my public apology. Thanks for the pod. Go Birds.
Yeah, I mean, you could have made a pretty good case for that. So it's not being a hater. I mean, it was a unprecedented collapse. So certainly, look, there's something they considered. So they're pretty glad they didn't make that move, and good for them for understanding what the right thing to do was there.
Yeah, and it's funny because it kind of bucks a thought that I've had before. Like, if you're thinking about firing the coach, you should probably fire the coach. But yeah, they didn't do it. And this whole season was, I don't know if this is like every year when a team wins the Super Bowl, everyone tries to copy them. Good luck copying this team. I don't even know. It's impossible to copy this team.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, for years, that was what the Eagles were doing. It's like, all right, the Cowboys are winning all these Super Bowls. Let's be like them. All right, the Niners are winning all these Super Bowls. Let's be like them. I don't know how you try to be like the Eagles. I'm not sure that that's
you have
possible.
An epic collapse. You think about firing the coach. You don't fire him. You bring in 2 new coordinators. You get the best running back in football. You find a special teamer in tournament, went all pro. Like I don't know. Like, good luck.
Draft 2 rookie cornerbacks and start them in a Super Bowl. Yeah. It's not a typical roadmap to a championship.
It's not. Oh, when was our last pod? Was it just the post game?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot to mention this. I went to the day after press conferences.
Yeah.
And they still do the stupid press conference before where all the mayors and city councilmen and Roger Goodell turn over the host city to the next year, and they show these videos, and it's like, let's just get to what we're supposed to do here.
Did you get the mayor of Santa Clara?
I didn't. The one guy though kept like rhyming everything with Bay. We're going to the Bay, and there's an old Happy Gilmore scene where like they make fun of that. It's like, what do you say? We just may. And I couldn't stop laughing as this guy kept rhyming everything. But anyway, Jalen Hurts came out and Nick Sirianni came out. Cool to see them posing with the trophies. And I weaseled my way in there to ask Nick a question.
It was a great question, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. First off, I had to fight to get that question in. So I strategically sat. This is really, no one will care about this other than you. So I'm just talking to you, Rube. Everyone else can go and wash their windows or get a cup of coffee. So during these press conferences, typically there's microphones that they hand out. If you have a question, you raise your hand, they bring over the microphone. Typically the best place to sit is on the edges because that's where the people with the microphones are. So I strategically find a seat on one of the ends and sit there, and they start the presser for Nick, and they say the PR people be in the middle aisle with the microphone. Middle aisle. I wasn't ready for middle aisle. So during the presser, I physically got up, walked around, and went back and sat in the middle aisle and raised my hand. And I did get the question in. And I basically just asked him, why was this team so close? Because it's your goal every year. He talks about connection more than anyone I've ever been around in my life. But like, what made this year and this year's team so close? He brought up the collapse of 2023 and said he's actually grateful that it happened, which is pretty amazing that he's grateful for a collapse that almost got him fired because it created the adversity to bond the team going into this season. Like, it's pretty remarkable, like the way things had to go for this team to get exactly where it was on Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't know if it hadn't been for that, like everything would have been different, and they don't win the Super Bowl this year. I kind of doubt that.
Well, if they didn't bottom out,
you don't make all those changes.
Exactly.
You don't get rid of 80% of the defense, all your coordinators, all your coaches almost. Yeah, you can make that case. It's an interesting. I thought it was. I was in the office actually. I'd gone back in the office because I left my laptop charger in the podcast room for the 9th time in an 11-week span, which is really got to be just an unprecedented record. But I think you had the second to last question. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I was really happy that you had gotten it in because it's hard in those situations to get a question in. And I just remembered in Minneapolis, we were doing that Monday morning MVP press conference at the Mall of America, and they were doing the handoff from Minneapolis. Was it to Atlanta? Where was the Super Bowl the next year?
I believe Atlanta.
I think it was Atlanta. And we could see they were doing the speeches and the mayor of Atlanta. We could see Nick like peeking his head out from behind the curtain, like, when's it going to be my turn? It was hysterical. But anyway, we saw Nick and Carson. I think Carson was back there too. But I thought it was a perfect question at that time, like day after, big picture type of question. And I thought Nick really rose to the occasion with his answer.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask him about buzzing his head earlier in the season, but someone had already asked it, so I didn't do it.
Yeah, yeah, and it was very short. I mean, it was very brief. What did Nick talk for, like 6 minutes?
Yeah, it wasn't long.
So yeah, that was good work.
All right, next question. Second question. Gosh, I'm sorry. From Bill. Okay, I've got a challenge to Rube that he'll probably not find on StatHead or Next Gen Stats. What's the earliest Gatorade bath ever given? The Eagles dropped theirs Sunday at around 2:42 in the fourth, I believe.
I thought it was like 256, but it was somewhere around there. I thought it was too early, but yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It's a good question. It was awfully early, and they also, it was pretty funny because was it Devontae and AJ? I think had it
Again. Yeah, they did in the NFC Championship game too.
But they were like about to do it, and then he started walking, and they pull. So it would have been before the 3-minute mark. But yeah, I think before the 2-minute warning is probably a little bit bad form. I think the Chiefs scored twice after it. But, yeah, it was. But it was a cool scene. Not a lot of guys go from almost getting fired to getting a Gatorade bath in the span of 13 months.
Next question from Steve. Dear Dave and Root, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat deserve contract extensions along with Zach Bond. Tell me I'm wrong. After the Super Bowl with Mekhi Becton missing time, I think it's all but certain our defensive line should be a priority. Patrick Mahomes was nowhere to be found except on sack highlight reels because of these two. If these guys don't deserve extensions after Zach Bond, then no one does. These two are the real deal, and I can't imagine how he lets them walk after showing their significant impact on the field, especially since Becton missed time and let Tyler Steen prove he could hold his own. Love you too, and can't thank you enough for the valuable insight you provide thrice on a weekly basis.
You actually wrote thrice?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, anyone who's listened to the pod or watched the pod knows how we feel about Milton Williams. I mean, I think he's just probably the most underrated player on the team. And he was beasting out there on Sunday. The whole D-line was. And look, knowing Howie, that's going to be a priority. Sweat's a little different case because I don't think he had a great year, but he had a great Super Bowl, certainly. He was fantastic. It's gonna come down to money, and they don't have the money to bring back everyone they want. So Bond's number one priority. And then, and then you see, I mean, somebody really good is going to have to walk, most likely.
Yeah, I think Milton is going to get paid. He'd be a really high priority for me. And we've talked about this before, just because I watched Fletcher Cox's career and how long they've tried to find the right guy to pair with him. And they tried for years, and it took until Javon Hargrave where they finally found it. And then by that point, Fletch was kind of at the end of his run. Man, Milton's such a great compliment for Jalen Carter, who's going to get doubled for now until maybe the end of his career. He's going to get double teamed all the time. Having a guy like Milton available to you is such a big deal. So I would even prioritize Milton over Josh Sweat, which might sound crazy. I would.
With you.
And he's younger. He's 4 years into this. I think the fear is that someone's going to just unload the Brinks truck for him. They're going to see him as a potential, like the 3 tech that you can build your team around.
He's only 25. I think Sweat's still only 27, maybe 28, 27. But I think I agree that he would be a bigger priority. I just think he means so much to this defense. And Sweat's been up and down over the last couple of years. You can't take anything away from what he did Sunday. It's probably the best game he ever played.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't Jalen Hurts, he would have been the MVP.
Yeah. You don't do top 3, do you? Just do one?
Just one, yeah.
Yeah. Who would your top 3 have been?
Definitely Jalen and then Sweat. It might have been Milton. I mean, Milton, because Cooper had the big play, and then he also had a tackle for a 1-yard gain early in the game. It would have been Cooper or Milton probably as 3.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking in the first half when it looked like it might be Sweat. We were just so excited for his press conference on Monday. Put him up in front of the world.
I would have been more excited to see him in Disney World right now.
That's a little scary. Yeah.
I saw some clips of Jalen in Disney World. Can you imagine Josh Sweat in Disney World? It would be hilarious.
It would. I might even fly down to Orlando for that, just to watch. But yeah, those are huge priorities. And then Zach Bond is, obviously the number one priority. But you want to keep this defense intact as much as possible. And if that means losing Becton, which you very well could, then you lose Becton.
Yeah, and this is not like a knock on Becton.
No.
I think you have to not prioritize him.
Yeah.
You're already paying your other offensive linemen. You have Tyler Steen. I think there is a drop off. There obviously is a drop off. I trust Jeff Stoutland in that, and he made Becton a starter. But you have Steen on a rookie contract. I think you have to make concessions here and there a little bit, and that's one I think you have to be willing to make.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, next one is from Anthony. Number one, thank you both for all you do each and every week. It is quite appreciated, but during draft time, but during times like this, you go crazy above and beyond. Number two, how about Rube with the bold prediction? All the best.
Yeah, and I just consider it luck. I think I nailed 4 of the last 5. I had Slay getting his first interception of the year, and he got it. I had 2 interceptions for the – now, the Eagles had never had an interception in a Super Bowl before Sunday. They had their first 2. That was my bold prediction. I've nailed a bunch of them. Some of them were pretty bizarre, but just got really lucky. I think Barrett was 1 for 21 or something. Yeah, Jaws did pretty well. But yeah, that's
Who
fun.
gets to decide if it's bold enough?
I'm the arbiter.
Oh,
I am the arbiter.
okay. Because like you could sneak in some not so bold predictions and call them a bold prediction. And I've heard tales that maybe that might have happened a few times this year. That's
true. Like Saquon's going to rush for 125 yards. Well, he's averaging 140, so that's not very bold. But yeah, it's fun to do. We have fun with those.
Yeah. Thomas. Hello, David Penn Snatcher Zangaro and Reuben Track Stat Teller Frank. I'm a 25-year-old fan from Connecticut. I started listening in 2019. You guys were the first podcast I'd ever listened to, and I've rarely missed an episode since. My question is about the Cooper DeJean pick 6. I know he was an amazing returner at Iowa, but how much do you think the time he spent with the special teams unit helped to bring that back for a touchdown? I'm sure Cooper spent a lot of time with Burks and Hunt when they were playing more special teams, and Hunt made an amazing block to really spring Cooper free during the return. Honestly, it reminded me a lot of Patrick Robinson's pick 6 in the NFC Championship game in 2017. Completely blew the roof off of that game. Thank you guys for the work you do for us fans. Never change.
Yeah, it reminded me of Eric Allen's pick 6 in the 92 playoff game against the Saints into the same corner of the end zone in the fourth quarter when the Eagles outscored the Saints 26-0 to win that game, 36-26. And Eric Allen was there Sunday.
Yeah, by the way, saw him leaving the we were waiting to go like back into the stadium because we had to go on the field, and he was walking out at that time, so he stopped to say hi. I was like, man, he had a pretty good few days here.
He really did. I'm just so happy for him, and yeah, we'll hope to get him on a podcast in the next month or so. Be good to catch up with him, but yeah, I think Cooper's history as a returner had to have helped him. I mean, because he ran through some serious traffic that last 10 yards. He was along the sideline, so he was kind of, you don't want to go out of bounds. And I think he did a little half spin move. It was a great return. But yeah, it's kind of like P. Rob's in that. I mean, they were losing, right? Wasn't that? I think they were down 7-0 in that game, and they were driving. And was that Case Keenum maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Picked him off, and I don't remember as much traffic down near the goal line on that one. I think he just kind of went in. But
Darby had a block. I mean, he got blown up, but it was a key block. He got in the way.
Okay, yeah.
You remember that? I mean, Darby got he got demolished, but he did his job. It was a block.
Interesting, but that was such a huge. I mean, the difference between being up 10-0 on the Chiefs and they have the ball and Mahomes has the ball in his hand to being up 17-0.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was the play of the game.
Oh, absolutely the play of the game. And it was Jalix Hunt had the first big block. And then Moro Ojima down the sideline, defensive tackle all the way down the field, getting a block late. Like, that's a big deal. That was a heck of a hustle play from him.
Yeah. And on an unrelated but somewhat related note, those guys are pretty good, both of them, Jalen Sutton and Moore. I mean, Jalen Sutton is going to be, and I don't know if you let Josh Sweat go because of Jalix, but think about how far he came this year. Wasn't even active.
He bull rushed Joe Thuney.
He did.
I mean, and I know Thuney's not a left tackle by trait, but he's a big, strong guy that probably isn't getting used to getting bull rushed by a guy who was a safety 2 years ago.
At Cornell, for crying out loud. Yeah.
You know what else Moro Ojima and Jalix Hunt have in common?
What's that?
Back-to-back surviving camp guys.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, you know how to pick them.
Something's going right.
Have you ever picked one who didn't pan out?
Sure. Not the worst. I don't want to say worst one. He made the team and he was a contributor that year. Kyron Johnson, 1 year, but he still made the team and he was a good special teamer.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the other ones have all been studs. Jordan Mailata and
your first.
Mailata was the first, and then T.J. Edwards.
Yeah, not bad. It's cool to hear Zach Ball talk about T.J. Edwards. You know, like how much he helped him in college. It was just, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you know, since we're talking about those two guys, I looked something up. So Nolan Smith is 23. He had 4 sacks in the postseason. Jalen Carter had 2. He's also 23. Jalix had 1.5. He's 23. And Moro had 1, and he's 23. Eagles had 8.5 sacks in the postseason from guys who were 23 years old. No team has ever had more than 5 sacks in a postseason from players 23 or younger. It just tells you, I mean, where this D-line is, and just these guys are all going to get better. And, you know, and then I guess Jordan Davis had 2 sacks. He's 25, I think. So, I mean,
after having one all year.
Yeah, the level of he had a good postseason. The depth of young D-line talent is unprecedented. I mean, you know what else I looked up? The Eagles' great defense to the late 80s. So they go to the playoffs 88, 89, 90. They lose each game. Those teams had Reggie White, Clyde Simmons, Jerome for two of those years. All those great pass rushers, Seth Joyner. Those teams had 3 total sacks in those 3 playoff games. Eagles had 16 sacks in the postseason this year. Interesting to me.
Yeah. From Malik, love your show, gentlemen. Much is being said about the Eagles and their amazing defensive performance in the Super Bowl. The defense was amazing, but so was the offense. Saquon was not productive in the run game, but Philly's commitment to continue feeding him forced the Chiefs to continue defending it, which opened up other things. They also got Saquon involved in the passing game, not to mention the others who made key offensive plays. There was never an offensive possession where I felt the Eagles were not in control. What do you think of their offensive game plan and how they executed? Thank you for the work you do.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on this earlier. I thought Kellen had a great day, and I thought it was really important that he kept dialing up those runs. You know, Spags kept crowding the box, and Jalen kept making plays against it. And Jalen he was incredible in that game, throwing the ball. I mean, completed almost 80% of his passes. So, yeah, he's now, by the way, the most accurate Super Bowl quarterback ever at 74% with the 2 games. So, yeah, I thought it was I thought they wanted to get the ball to Saquon in different ways. Now, those plays didn't really work, but he had the one for like 16 yards down deep in the red zone, which was a big one. He had 40 yards receiving. So, those were big plays. So I really like the offense. I like the concept. I think they knew exactly how to beat the Chiefs on both sides of the ball. But certainly, if all the talk's been on the defense, certainly a lot of it, the offense deserves a lot of shine as well. No doubt.
Yeah, I like Malik's point that them sticking with the run game made it so the Chiefs couldn't get out of what they were doing, which is like it's a good way to put that, because there has to be a balance there. Because if you say, "Oh, they're loading the box, we can't run anymore," then like the Chiefs know you're doing that too. So you have to stick with it at least a little bit. And that's got to be frustrating because you're like, in a way, you're running your head into a brick wall and you're probably not going to be able to get much out of it. But to keep them honest, you still have to do it a little bit.
Yeah. And, those plays kept moving the clock. And the clock was their friend in this game.
Yeah, pretty early it became their friend.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the questions for today. If you have one for us, it's eagleeye@nbcuni.com. That's eagleeye@nbcuni.com. Any final words today, Rube?
No. Can we take more questions next time? I like the questions.
Yeah, I know. We got a little behind today. We were off on some tangents. We'll get to more.
We got behind the sticks, Dave.
We did. We'll have to be better on first and second down. We will try to do that. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's all the time for today. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. Hope you're still enjoying the afterglow of a Super Bowl victory. That's a lot of fun. This has been the Eagle Eye podcast presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.